Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority Commission meeting of December the 8th. Call to order. I show that Mike Fox, Arthur Babbitts, Grant Paulson from Oregon is in attendance. Jake Anderson, Eric Wilson, and Mark Flaming is. Oh, and Catherine Thomas just joined us as well. And I think that is it. We do have a quorum, so we can proceed. Modifications, additions to the agenda. Is there any? If not, if I could have a motion to approve as is.
To approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed. Okay. Going through the minutes from the last meeting, is there any corrections needed? If not, would like to see a motion to approve that as well. Any adjustments needed?
I would so move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed. Public comment, 3 minutes per person, 30 minutes max. Do we have anybody? I have a no. No. Anybody online? No comments? Executive reports, co-chair report. Jake, anything?
Nothing that won't be mentioned later.
I would just like to mention and congratulate the folks that worked on the public out brief this last week. I think everybody did a great job. There was a pretty good turnout, more than I actually thought we were going to get.
In a really small room, so
Yeah.
it feels full.
Yeah, so Arthur did the MC in there, and I think he did a great job. I saw the best thing that I saw is that there was a little stickers on each of the place boards with the exception of the bridge. Which is good. Okay,
I thought the folks who were manning the tables did a really good job of getting people talking and recording what they had to say and putting everything down and making people feel comfortable saying things that weren't expected or whatever. It's it takes some talent, I know, to do that and to not have people think they're supposed to be
check the box,
giving check marks, and people, I think they did a great job at soliciting input.
I don't know about you folks, but the couple of folks that I engaged with at the various tables, they had some really good questions. So, they're engaged and spot on.
I think the transportation community has a lot of people who are zealous advocates, and we had good representation of them there. So we got to hear the sorts of things that that they would say in any transportation meeting.
Okay, let's go to the project director report.
So I heard back from FHWA last week that they are hopeful that this week they will be able to finalize the MOA with Umatilla. So I'm looking for that to go out this week. I'm hopeful that we'll hear something and that'll go out this week for signature.
It would be really, really nice if we had that done by Thursday.
Yes.
That's the first official one with 4 left.
Yeah, they were doing their final review from their headquarters group last week. They have not heard anything significant from them.
And so just so folks understand, this is the first tribal memorandum of agreement.
First tribal memorandum of agreement for the impacts to the treaty fishing rights with the Umatilla tribe. There are 4 tribes in all: Umatilla, Warm Springs, Nez Perce, and Yakima. So Umatilla would be the first, and then we're hoping the other 3 will follow along not too far after that.
And we've been basically pursuing them more directly, knowing that instead of doing all at the same time, you do one and then let them use it as a model.
We've been trying to do it anyway.
Well, I know the other things involved, but
we're hoping
this will be a catalyst.
Yeah, once we get this one done, it'll be a model for the other 3, and that it'll help facilitate the other 3.
Has more staff available to work on this sort of things.
Just to let you guys know, how many meetings have we had with the
over 130? in the last 4 years of different meetings of different, related to this topic. So we'll continue to engage and work through it, but it'll be great to get that first one done. We did meet this morning with Arthur and Jake Anderson to start the discussions about right away. So we gave them a briefing this morning. We'll continue to do that. We've got a meeting this week with the National Park Service and OPRD related to the 6F appraisal to find out some clarifications from them on how to interpret that. And then we'll start to move forward with that 6F work. So
this is mitigation
work.
Yeah, it's a function of the right of way acquisition.
Correct. So 6F is the recreational portion, and us impacting that 6F property requires mitigation. So it's typically done by the cost is developed by looking at the land values and providing equal land value for the impacted land value. So we're going through that process now.
And it's just the land value.
That's what we're looking at. That's what we're having a discussion with OPRD and National Park Service to see if they agree that it should be just the land.
But this is for
FHWA has agreed to that, but we need their agreement as well.
This is for the port offices as well as the temporary maintenance shed, as well as the temporary use of the parking lot.
Yep, and the grass area there outside of the buildings. Right. Yes, that's all correct. So we also, I spoke with FHWA last week. They're finalizing the infra agreements in order to get it over to OST.
That's like movement. That's forward movement.
Yeah, you could say that a little bit. It's a step in the right direction.
It sounds like
not backward.
It's not big.
No, it's a step in the right direction. So their FHWA legal is doing their review of our response to their comments that we received 2 or 3 months ago. They will finish that and then move it on to the Office of the Secretary of Transportation, who will then review it and make a determination of whether they can split the grant.
Right.
And right now it's a $200 million reward.
Right.
And we've looked at splitting it, $75 million for design, $125 for construction.
Right.
FHWA has agreed. They provided some comments. They agreed with the splitting, and they're going to move it forward to the Office of the Secretaries with that recommendation. If they agree, then we can sign it with that and move forward. If they disagree, then we may have to sign it as a construction only, meaning that we can't use the funds for design. We can only use it for construction. But that's what we're trying to finalize now with them, is the makeup of that agreement. It's not a question of whether we get the 200 million, it's how we get it and whether it's separated or not.
Is that correct? I mean, without the actual obligation, is that the right word? Without the actual obligation, we kind of think that we were promised this money, but until we have the paperwork signed in some form, it's not really there, right?
Technically, I think, yes, until you sign the agreement's not signed. You were awarded the money, you've been identified as to receive the money. You have to get through the grant agreement process, but until you sign the grant agreement, you don't officially have the money, right? So
I thought with the change in administrations, there was the feeling there might be clawbacks of some of this. And once it's signed, you're significantly down the road in terms of protection against the clawback compared to before it's signed.
So with infra, there was actually a process to go through and see if our project met the intent of the new administration. So when we were back there in September, we got word that our project meets the goals of the new administration, which kind of indirectly meant that it was a good step towards us getting the agreement signed. So we think all that's positive in the sense of us getting it signed at some point when we get through the process.
So will you let me consider that as a plus?
Yes, that's a big plus. That was a big plus. That kind of, I won't say guaranteed because it's not signed, but it definitely was a big positive step that the administration approved of the scope and goals of our project were in line with their goals.
And it feels like that's where this momentum toward the agreement really started again.
Yeah, it started picking up from that. So
that number also includes 8 million for our congressional.
Because that was wrapped into the same
Yeah,
negotiation,
but
right?
there's a process right now that we're trying to split that back out.
yes, we're trying to split and it's the congressionally directed spending $8 million. We got 4 million from Washington, 4 million from Oregon. Back in 2024, I think it was, when we were awarded this, and awarded the congressionally directed spending money, we thought that the process was going to be a little quicker. So FHWA asked us to combine the money. We said, sure, if that means it's an easier process, great. Fast forward to today where it's still kind of going through a process. We've talked to them about, hey, we really need to get to the congressionally directed spending money. So we've asked them to separate it, and they're in the process of moving forward with separating that back out and moving forward with the congressionally directed spending money separate from the info money.
So the issue that we've got to watch out for is if magically this thing gets signed by DC, the 208 million.
Yes, we won't separate. We'll just stop.
Won't separate it.
Correct. We'll just stop that work.
Okay, and so remind me, the 8 million, was that from Merkley and Cantwell, or was it from all 4 senators?
It was
It was 4 and 4.
It was a combination.
Yeah.
It was for Oregon, for Washington. It was Merkley and Wyden.
So that's what I'm asking, if it's all 4. So it's both senatorial and congressional.
That's right.
Yes, from on both
I thought
sides.
they were separate.
On the
Okay.
Washington side, it was Cantwell and Newhouse led it. Murray. So.
And the original intent of the 4 and 4 was to pay for.
Yeah, and that what we asked for on the Oregon one was right away and tribal MOAs. What came back was more flexibility than that.
Great.
So both of the 4 millions actually have a lot of flexibility in how we use it. We had earmarked the money, part of the money, for tree MOA and right away, and then just design with the other. But it came back with more flexibility, so that was good that we have a lot of flexibility.
In terms of the timing, it seems pretty appropriate for the MOA and the.
Well, for clarification, we can agree with the MOA, but we're not subject to payment until we get notice to proceed of construction.
Okay, so then the right of way, we are capable of moving forward with right of way acquisition now that we have the record decision, right?
Right, yes, yeah. And if we had to use that money for something else, we could, and use other money for the MOA. We're not restricted to only. So, all right. And then just on the general project team, we're still finalizing the technology side of the bridge monitoring, getting everything to play together. So the server's been installed here in this building. They're coordinating with the technical side of the bridge monitoring to get all the stuff tied up into the cloud and functioning. So hopeful that at the end of this year, we'll have all of that bridge monitoring up and running. So they're still working on the technical side of it.
End of year being 2025.
Yes.
So Dan, that may be worthy of a news article or something when it actually is operational.
Yes. Yeah, and what we'll be monitoring is the movement of the bridge, the vibrations, any tilting of just the natural. What we want to do is establish a baseline of how much the existing bridge moves. It has nothing to do with the safety of the bridge or the structural capacity of the bridge. It is just all bridges move. If you stand on them, you feel like you're moving because they do move. We just want to know how much and in what direction so that we know when we start construction a couple 100 feet away, if we're making that any worse. So
yeah, I know when we had the open house on the bridge, everything felt kind of steady until the marching band came along. And suddenly the whole bridge was like making me pretty nervous.
Yeah, it moves under that. It also moves under thermal change.
Is
Like
there also a weather station involved in this?
we are. They're actually installing a weather station as well.
We talked
on the
about
tower.
Whether to make that public.
I think what the authority had decided was that they would make all of that public. Once we got it up and running, we'll figure out how to share it. But
Might be a
we
good
have to
idea
wait
to
and
use
see
that to
that.
attract a little traffic to our public facing site.
we could do that. Yeah.
So Mike, one of the early on reasons for putting this up was a potential test pile program.
Correct.
That's what?
test pile program. We wanted to drive a couple piles and see if we see any movement on the bridge before we start doing really heavy duty stuff.
Correct.
Are we still going to do that?
The intent would be to do that if we feel like there's a value in it. I think there will be. Once we see kind of what the movements are, I think it would be beneficial to understand that when we go out there, before we go out there, how much, if any.
Yeah, we don't want
Impact.
surprises when we actually.
Yeah, you don't want to start construction.
Can it be done under the geotech permit, or does that require a separate permitting?
That would probably require a separate permit.
Requires separate permitting.
Yeah.
The geotech, when is that? We were waiting for the record decision on that. So
No, we got
the Coast Guard.
Army Corps.
Next.
Wait, no, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Why don't we get the briefing now? Because,
Okay.
yeah,
Christy, you want to talk to everybody about the?
Yeah, so just a reminder, Arthur got the record decision, so that one, we're not gonna talk about paper much anymore. So I'm trying to pull it out of places, you're still seeing it in the packet, but that'll start disappearing. It doesn't mean that we're not responsible as an organization to adhere to NEPA. We are forever. That is a perpetual responsibility. I need to be clear. But for the time being, for this project, as described, NEPA is concluded. So, yeah. On the other hand, we're trying to do geotechnical in-water work, and we've been slow with the Army Corps work, both because of the nature of our project and also because of the furlough that the Army Corps was on last month.
Right.
But we made a lot of progress in the last week, and we're very hopeful that we'll see that last permit. All our other permits are basically in. But we'll see that last permit and enable the design team to put their sub out and do some drilling this winter. So there'll be a couple of barges on the water. There's a likelihood because of this delay that they'll mobilize 2 drilling barges. So they might be on the river together.
I think their tentative date right now is early January.
Excuse me?
Their tentative date right now is early January.
Early January.
Remind me, when is the in-water work window?
For this effort, the in-water work window was September 30th. I'm not sure of that first date, but the close date is June 30th.
June 30th, okay.
Which is not the same as the in-water work window for the whole project.
Right.
It's October to March.
I was just wondering about what the immediacy was of getting this started.
We want to be done before the summer.
Yep.
On this, for a lot of reasons,
Well,
not because of the in-water work window, but also design is advancing pretty rapidly, and geotechnical information really feeds into that. So we don't want to have too many repeats because the data is late.
So
yeah,
basically, this
according to Joe, who is our project engineer for Kiewit, he needs that information by early March to maintain schedule.
basically for every place that a piling is going to be done, there'll be a test hole drilled. A pier.
Every pier.
Oh, for every pier. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's not for every piling.
It's for every shaft.
For every shaft. Okay. So for every shaft.
Half within on the pier.
Yes.
Okay. So for every shaft, well, I mean, that's important, is that for every shaft, there'll be a hole drilled. And if they discover something, they may then decide we better move this one.
Or they'll, I mean, depending on what they find.
They're gonna redesign either how deep they have to go or expand the size of it.
Okay.
The change in location is probably unlikely. It'll be more of a depth change or size.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I had one more permitting statement to say if this is relevant. So we've finished NEPA, but in the state of Washington, we have a SEPA process that's been going on. We're making headway with that very rapidly, actually, since the ROD has been signed. Washington's rules are more stringent than NEPA, so we had to write a SEPA addendum. Not a lot of detail in that. It's pretty lightweight, but it was required. WashDOT's been reviewing that. We meet with WashDOT the 20th to get their comments. And then we expect that over the next few weeks, WashDOT will move forward with some kind of notice that they've made a decision. I'm not sure how they're going to frame it, and I'll get back to you on that. But just so you know, it's moving forward. We hope to have this SEPA completely done before the springtime gets here.
And WashDOT is the lead agency on that.
Yes, it turns out for this
Interesting.
project, which it's a little unusual, but it's been very convenient and they've been very, very helpful. WashDOT has taken on the responsibility to be the lead SEPA agency.
So just a couple other things that the PDB and projects team's working on. One is evaluating access onto the Washington shoreline. Even though the water goes right up to the shoreline, it's not as easy as just taking a boat or barge up to the shoreline. That water gets very shallow and it's very difficult to get into that shoreline. And then being constrained by the TFAS site on the west side.
Travel fishing.
The travel fishing access site on the west side and the BNSF railroad on the north, it's kind of landlocked in. So we've been looking at different options in order to get in and do just the geotechnical work, but also then long-term access. We are looking right now at going down the BNSF right away and whether we can build a permanent access road within the BNSF right away. So we've got some concepts on that. We're trying to schedule a meeting by the end of the year with BNSF to get approval from them that we can do that. We've had a preliminary conversation with them and they said as long as we can stay, I think it's 20 to 25 feet away from the rail, that we can use the remaining portion of the right of way. So that's what we're looking at doing, is using that. We're also looking at a helicopter option to bring in some of the geotech boring equipment and potentially lowering the equipment down from the bridge, the existing bridge, down to the ground because it's the difficulty in getting to the shoreline from the river. So just another big component that we're looking at to figure out short-term access, but also long-term access.
Just give Warren Buffett a call. I'm sure he'll green light it.
Yes, yes.
So again, the key thing that we got to keep in mind is we need that data by the 1st of March. So we don't have a lot of time to go build a road. But this other option, either
So I didn't realize this is actually, this access is necessary even for the boring.
For the boring, yeah.
So you can't get the barge in there.
The real kicker is the borings.
You can't do boring from a rowboat. Yeah, okay.
Unless you have one in your backyard, let us know.
One of the other things that we've started the aesthetics coordination back up of taking and implementing the aesthetics memo that we developed.
Yeah.
So we've got a smaller group that's focusing just on that, working with Commissioner Wilson to work on how to implement the aesthetics components of the project. That'll overlap with some of the mitigation measures that Christie's working on. So those groups are coordinating right now to look at how we implement or make sure we get what we wanted out of the aesthetics, but also counting that for as many things as we can if it overlaps into some of the mitigation requirements from NEPA. So.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned a little earlier about, the toll collection system a little bit.
Mhm.
When are we going to start having discussions on tolling and coming together with a specification that says we need this kind of capability to be able to handle free trips, discount trips, whatever?
So that process has started. They actually met with the funding and finance group, and we brought it up with the E&C committee. So we're developing what's called a concept of operations for tolling, which kind of outlines all of those things for you related to tolling. The E&C committee has designated one of their members, Catherine Thomas, to handle kind of direct coordination with the teams and kind of be in the weeds of the day-to-day stuff that's going on the civil side. And then the funding and finance committee identified Mark Flaming as kind of their point of contact on the collection finance side of the tolling side. So they'll be working with the team. They'll have regularly scheduled meetings as they work through this concept of operations. And then that'll all end up coming back to the full board for decisions, but they'll work with those two commissioners to kind of work through it and then work back up through the committees and back up to the full board. But that'll outline a lot of those things of tolling policies, tolling procedures, how and what kind of tolling, the gantry location we've identified, that's going to be on the Oregon side. There'll still be a lot of discussions around back office, how you want to run the back office, how you want to do maintenance. A lot of decisions will be coming related to tolling.
I think would be helpful for the commission to understand the overall schedule for making all of that happen. I'm not concerned when I'm watching a little bit, the impact on design of the bridge with the conduits and any kind of embeds that you're gonna need. And we've got kind of two organizations doing this. You've got Kiewit driving the bridge. You've got HNTB looking at the tolling. When do they have to come together?
Yeah, so we've been working on that coordination, and in the task force meetings, they've been talking about that. So you've got the civil side of where the gantry needs to be, getting the foundations in. They need to know what conduits you need on the bridge. So they've been coordinating that already. So that'll continue as this CONOP gets developed. It'll merge into the two. And I think if Carrie's on, I believe that
There is not, but I'm here, Mike. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we are engaging them in the task force meetings already.
What's the due date for the CONOPs to be done? Is it March?
March, yes, end of March.
Okay, that's good.
It's CONOPs.
Concept of operations. Sorry. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mike?
Yeah, so in the tolling, the policy issues, those really are going to wait until we're closer to borrowing the money so we understand what the financial implications are, correct?
Some of those will, yes. Some of them will need to know kind of some base principles of how you want to approach things.
Right.
And then the full policies will be developed kind of as you get closer to.
And at some point, they're going to want to know, the people who are doing the detailed investment level, investment grade analysis are going to need to know, give us 2 or 3 options, right?
Yeah. And the tolling, there's a couple things with that question. There's the TNR analysis that we're doing. The traffic and revenue investment grade. So they're working on that now. The other piece is actually securing the toll vendor and doing the procurement for the toll vendor that'll put the equipment out, and also the back office equipment and the collection equipment that you need. We won't do any of that work until we know that we're going forward with construction.
Right.
But we'll get all the kind of basic baseline parameters set up that'll inform that between now and when we make the decision of going to construction.
But I think we need to make some key decisions on operability of how you want this thing to work. Do you want the ability to give discounts, multi-trip discounts, those kinds of things? You don't have to say, I need 10% of these, 15% of that. You don't need that, but you need the capability of what do we want to be able to use in the future?
You're talking about software spec.
Yes.
We'll bring those things back to you as they develop the CONOPs, and those are kind of there's lots of decisions related to that. That'll start coming back to the group. So.
It'd be nice if we kind of had that discussion in a condensed manner. I hate to see that an issue decided every week for 6 months.
The idea would be to get a pile of those things together and, like you're saying, bring you, that's why we wanted to identify a couple individual commissioners that could be involved in kind of making sure the direction's going the right way, and then bring the bigger decisions to you as kind of a grouping of decisions and not piecemeal a decision every week.
The reason I'm focusing on this because there's obviously going to be a significant public interest in how this is done. So as we get closer, I hope that the communications group is looking at how the public engagement is going to happen. So, most people don't care about 99% of the stuff we're talking about today, but they will care about what that looks like, what the tolling looks like.
Yeah, and remember a lot of your traffic and revenue, the TIFIA loan that you've already established and you're going after, set your toll plan for now through 35 years.
In terms of the total revenue.
In terms of in terms of total revenue, which is also in terms of your toll rate increases and the rates that'll be set over time.
Right.
Now, discounts and things like that will need to be decided because they'll need to be taken into account, because if you give discounts to 50,
you have to pay for
somewhere else.
You have to pay for every discount.
Right. Yeah. So, you need to keep that base toll revenue to qualify for that 105
Right.
revenue. So if you give discounts here, that may impact somebody's cost.
You mean, is that grant money for that?
I think the reason to bring this up is that's going to be an interesting discussion and it won't be a short one.
Yes.
So we got to figure out when do you need it and then back some time off of that and start the process.
The first batch of this discussion was assigned to funding and finance in the past prior when we were going through this initially.
Right.
And then
When?
remember the date?
No, but you said in the past,
In the
prior.
Yes. We have already assigned this to funding and finance
Oh, okay, got it.
to do some of this.
And it belongs there.
And then
Yeah.
back to the authority and the authority approved some first backup.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get in my own head, knowing the construction schedule that we're trying to drive to and backing up from design. Okay, when do we have to have that done? And then realizing there's going to be public involvement and the entire, you guys are doing the detail work, but we got to sell a whole bunch of people on it.
And we're having those discussions with all those. I mean, there's that schedule, the permitting schedule, Kiewit's embedding right now into their baseline schedule. We also have the right-of-way schedule that's going to go into it and the utility schedule that will go in it. So there's a number of sub-schedules that are kind of big task activities that are going to feed into the design schedule, and they're not independent, right? There's things that each one of those needs from the design, and there's things design needs from each one of those. So they're intertwined in how they need to operate. So
we probably worked this one enough. It's just, hey, this is a major issue that's going to come to the board probably in the next 3 to 6 months.
yes.
Okay. Let's move on to legal report. Is there, I don't see any of our legal folks. Mike, do you have any update that we need?
I don't have any legal updates. There's no real legal.
Yeah, there's no real issues going on right now, right?
They're doing normal annual reviews on policies and
Yeah.
as we need to on updates that we're doing.
There was one that we just did on Friday, right?
The conflict of interest policy.
Conflict of interest. That was-
Yeah. The item that you brought up was not addressed by Mark Guido.
Not.
No,
Oh, because I saw you sent him an email asking if he addressed. Did you say, is he going to address it or?
I haven't heard back.
You haven't heard back, okay.
So it got dropped off from this meeting.
The issue just being that Oregon last session changed the conflict of interest laws, the statewide laws. So our policy, which hasn't even been approved yet, has to be updated.
Okay, let's move to government relations. Dan?
Sure. I've got a couple things to share, but being the first meeting of the month, our lobbying teams are also logged in, so maybe we can let them
You're
go
on.
first. Okay. Like
I can jump in, Dan. Jim's driving, so he will fill in any color. So first, for the month of November, Summit met bi-weekly with the Bridge Authority, and we provided daily memos about the ongoing government shutdown to provide information on how that was progressing. Since our last meeting, we also secured letters of support from Senators Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell and Representatives Dan Newhouse and Marie Glusen-Camp-Perez for the Bridge Investment Program grant application. We're trying to get a handle on the timing right now for the BIP awards. We've also talked to Mike about timing for a trip in the new year. We've also notified the congressional delegation that the Federal Highway Administration signed the ROD. We also provided the save the date for the ROD celebration. We are currently at 6 RSVPs for that event, representing Senator Murray's office, Cantwell's, Wyden's, Rep. Dexter's, and Senator Merkley's. We also provided feedback on the congratulatory letter and project invite for new FHWA Administrator Sean McMasters. We ensured that McMaster received the letter and he acknowledged the receipt. Finally, we helped schedule a meeting at your office with Rick Evans of Office Senator Cantwell's office to discuss the bridge replacement project. And that is all from me. I'm sure, Dan, you can add any extra stuff.
that's great. Thanks, Ryan. And yeah, thanks for getting that meeting set up with Rick. It was good seeing him last week. Yeah, and he's on the meeting here today. Okay, moving on to Thorn Run. It's like Dan or Maddie.
Hi, everyone. It's Dan Bates. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. I am sorry in the hallways outside the Oregon Business Summit and the convention today. I thought I might just give a brief overview on where things are as we start looking into a short session. We are heading into a short session, which is about 35 days. The topic of overwhelming importance is going to be the budget. We had a recent economic forecast that was somewhat good news in that it dropped the deficit in Oregon's budget from about $350 million down to about 63 million. But even at that level, at 300 million, with the coming Medicaid, both cost increases and cuts, the state is forecasting billions of dollars of reductions over the next 3 biennium, and they were looking at trimming the budget significantly. The numbers we were hearing was somewhere around 900 million to $1 billion in this biennium, as a way to try and decrease the impacts in future biennium, and try and make some of those cuts relatively early. So all of that to say is there is an environment at the legislature focused really around how to deal with a coming budget crisis. Agencies submitted cut scenarios to the legislature. Somewhere they were given scenarios of 2.5% and 5% on those, and then the legislature in the most recent legislative days took receipt of those, and those are all public. All that to focus in on the short session is already a limited policy environment. There are bill limits for each member, and there's a small universe of legislation that will proceed. It is likely that conversation for those 35 days will be about trying to right size the budget moving forward. So we remain vigilant on watching all of that. At this point, there is, I think, a recognition that the capital construction projects of which our funding is within are the type of projects that folks want to make investments in, that are likely to produce long-term economic gains and revenue through stimulus of the economy. And so most of the conversations around cutbacks and rollbacks have actually not been around on the capital side. It's mostly been on other funds, but it is something that's really important to watch. There have been some discussions in the water space, for example, of trying to roll back some projects that were funded. So we'll remain engaged on that at this point. I think the work that we're all doing, talking about the progress and the record of decision, and having, both members, I think, of the Oregon delegation are intending on being there, and just celebrating that is really important, and demonstrating the progress. You'll recall the last time, and we've chatted about this previously, the last time there was any kind of rollback on lottery dollars was actually in the midst of COVID. And that's because lottery receipts plummeted. And that is different than any kind of scenario moving forward. So it feels stable, but in any kind of budget environment, we have to stay vigilant. So that's where we are there. We've mentioned in, I think, previous meetings, there's been some reshuffling in the transportation committees. Everyone's eyes are watching whether or not the referral on the most recent small package gets the ballots, and then whether it passes or not, which, if it does, leaves a significant hole, particularly on the ODOT budget, which is obviously really important as a partner, and for the rest of the state. Our funding lies elsewhere. It lies in the lottery funds, so not directly affected, other than when ODOT takes a cut like that, it affects everything. So we're obviously watching that closely in a wide variety of different lenses. So happy to answer any questions, but that's...
Yeah, Ben, hold on.
Yeah, so Dan, the ODOT, the potential referral of the funding measure for ODOT. I know that we don't get funding directly through that, but in what ways might that affect our project if a referral is successful?
Sure. I mean, I think there's, and again, ODOT would be the best to speak about how they try and deal with the cuts. Essentially, that is revenue that's expecting on a largely operations and maintenance moving forward. And ODOT's work affiliated with project partnership and walking through with us through project development, as well as the ongoing work that you rely upon from ODOT could all possibly be affected. I haven't seen any kind of specific analysis as to how it might affect the region or the project, but it's dramatic and it really does can hamstring ODOT's ability to be a partner on a project like this.
So basically, ODOT acts in a support role with us, and their ability to do so is potentially affected by their funding.
I can only assume so.
Thank you.
Dan, and I'm going to get this wrong, so I apologize, but if I remember right, last year as we were going into the short session, there was some discussion about some language that would help us with insurance and, yeah, what was that?
The tort language.
Is that getting in consideration this time around, or I haven't heard anything on that?
No, the discussion I think was in front of the long session and actually had a bill introduced. Given its potential controversy and what we were trying to do in the slowest of the stakeholder response on that, we ended up not pursuing that. And because of the limited focus on this session, I think the goal, as we've discussed, would be to have that as a possibility in the long session in 2027.
And what's the impact on us by waiting?
Nothing, as long as we can get it before we start construction.
Right. So, but that's what's just, Dan, you just used the word potentially something to be discussed in the short session. It's pretty critical for us. I mean, in the long session, it's critical for us that we get it by the end of 27, because otherwise we have trouble acquiring insurance to do the construction. But in terms of whether anything moves during the short session, what we were told in our committee was that it seems quite unlikely, but if something magically appeared having to do with tort claims where this was being opened up for some other reason, obviously you take advantage of that and try to do something, but otherwise we shouldn't expect anything in the short session.
That's right.
That would be long session of 26, not long session of 27.
2020, early 2027.
27.
January to June 2027.
Right.
Okay.
And we need it by construction window, which starts October. Yeah.
Getting close.
Okay.
Construction is going to be
Thank
started
you.
before that.
And I didn't see, is Brad Boswell on? I don't see his name up there. Just, very similar situation in Washington. The short session begins on January 12th. There they have 60 days to do the legislative work. So similar budget context as in what Dan was describing in Oregon, competing priorities on revenue generation and project funding. Brad and the team will remain engaged on that as the picture comes clearer. And then we'll be seeing Senator King and two of the local representatives at the event on Thursday.
I'm always confused. I'm sorry, going back to argument. I'm always confused how we have a significant budget shortfall when we have a very large kicker at the same time. Am I missing something?
I do not feel prepared to speak to that today.
It seems like they're supposed to be measuring the same thing.
Yeah.
So like there's the lag though, right? Doesn't like kickers from 2 years ago before it comes out.
Okay.
I think.
So who?
Not my bailiwick though.
Submitted now for Thursday.
There were the congressional staffers that Ryan mentioned from I think all four Senate offices and Congresswoman Dexter's office. Senator King, Rep. Waters, Senator Harris from the Washington legislature have RSVP'd, Representative Helfrich, Senator Drazen, And I think those are the only two on the management side.
So I'm trying to get rid of core samples.
Hold on.
Okay. And of the list of senators and so on, the only ones that I don't think we've hit already is Harris and Drazen. Drazen.
We may have given Harris one in Olympia. We'll check my note.
Okay.
Drazen's gonna be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
And how about for Thursday, is all of the commissioners going to be there?
Yes. I'll have been invited. I haven't seen the RSVP list.
Okay.
Ones who
I will
haven't.
not.
Yes.
Yeah. So here in spirit.
You'll be missed. You need
I will not either.
Yeah, Nate, Mark, Doug all have conflicts according to this. Grant says has a conflict.
Okay.
It says optional conflict.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Partner update. Let's go through anybody from Federal Highways on today. I didn't see any.
Wow.
Rob, anything from you?
I don't have any updates.
Okay.
I don't know how the budget would shake out. I don't think anybody knows.
Rob, are you gonna make it on Thursday?
I haven't figured out if I can or not.
Okay.
Is anybody else from ODOT?
Most of the environmental group had a conflict and weren't gonna make it. So I have not heard back from Ryan.
Okay.
It looks like Caroline just the chat that WashDOT was, I believe she said was going to make it.
Yeah, I don't see any ODOT people on the green.
Rob, if you can make it, we'd sure like to have you.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I mean, I have conflicts all day, but whether I can rearrange them.
As long as it's not on this bridge, we're okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Anybody from WashDOT? I don't see anybody. Okay, moving on.
No, I'm here, but I always have a hard time with the unmute. I don't have anything to share, but we'll attend the ceremony on Thursday. As you know, Carly's moving to IBR, so she's not going to be attending, but I will for sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Let's go into consent agenda. Invoice approvals. Mike, you want to walk us through those?
Anything on questions or anything on the consent items?
If not, could I have a motion to approve the consent items, which is, let's just hold it with the invoice approvals for right now.
Move to approve the invoices.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've approved the invoices. A revised policies, project records and retention, and public records request policy. Have we all had an opportunity to read through that extremely stimulating policy document?
Revision though.
I understand it to all be compliant with both relevant state laws.
Yep.
And 200 CFR.
And 200 CFR, federal.
2 CFR 200.
Sorry.
Oh.
Thank you. See,
Federal regulations.
see, I lose right there. Out of the pool.
You're not compliant, sir.
Okay, is there changes that anybody would like to make to those documents?
You mean to the CFR?
Yeah. I know I'm not.
There's already a lot of changes to the
Yeah.
CFR. Let's not make any more.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve both of those documents?
I so move.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Committee reports, the funding and finance.
Sure. I'll start with the other stuff before we get to that. We held meetings. We talked about concept of operations for tolling a bit, which we've discussed earlier. We're going to talk about it a lot There was some previous work that we did in that realm, which we all can refresh on if you guys want to get those decisions resent to you. Yeah, review. It's in the old TNR study, traffic and revenue study, and a few other decisions that the authority made. We reviewed Baker Tilly staff score number 2, which subsequently passed last meeting, and we had a proposal for alternative funding that we reviewed and passed up. Oh, and now we get to the fun part, which is the stuff we've all been waiting on, which is brief presentation on executive director analysis that we've been tasked to do some time ago. It's been put off for a little bit because we had other stuff we were also tasked with in the meantime that we had to do and questions that we had to answer in order to answer this question. You don't mind bringing up that slideshow, maybe? Thanks.
I don't want that.
And it's in the packet. Yep. Yes. So back in February of 25, we were asked, Funding and Finance Committee was asked to evaluate the feasibility and financial ramifications of hiring an executive director and what that would mean for the authority. It's a very big question. And so in answering, trying to approach that question, we had more questions we had to answer along the way. We had to review the job descriptions, scope, structure, governance, reporting to CFR 200, everything that goes along with those requirements, reporting structures that goes along with those requirements, everything that is included in said slide there. Timing is an important consideration. Grants, applicability of the grants to this position, levels of service we wish to desire in terms of everything we are asking this individual to do, along with our own expectations as an authority within the context of financial implication. And then any recommendations should direction on this is any assumptions or any direction on this should assure the board that hiring a executive director timing costs responsibilities are aligned with federal reimbursement rules, fiscal prudence, we're not wasting any money, of course, and the existing owner's rep model, which we are currently using now. We do not have an executive director. We are governmentally an owner's rep contract model governance structure. Right. Our governance structure relies solely on an owner's rep.
No, but what's the
HNT
name? No. What is the classification of our organization? You just stated we are
that's the recommendation for next. What we're using now.
Yes.
We're utilizing an owner's rep governance model, and that we don't have our own staff internal. We contract all of that out through our owner's rep. HNT.
With an exception
of a couple of interim folks.
Yeah, but a service.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using port finance,
right?
Yes,
to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the port executive director. Technically, didn't we?
Technically, but he hasn't signed anything.
But we have him on hold until
interim
in case we do need it.
Yeah.
For any situation where we're required to have an actual employee as opposed to our board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where we have been operating from, and we were evaluating everything under that context.
Yep.
And moving forward. So looking forward, there are certain requirements and ramifications that if we were to create or use this position in any way that is in conflict with our current structure, it wouldn't necessarily work. And so we looked at some other structures. As some of these things are going to be recommendations or thoughts that you'll see later in the presentation. That's recommendations or thoughts that staff has. So hold some of these questions until later. But we started to work on the assumption that at some point we would transition to a hybrid model. as displayed up there. A hybrid governance model is utilized by a number of other bridge authorities. That's where we have a full-time staff of our own staff, actual dedicated staff, with our own executive director, core staff, core finance folks, and then our owner's rep, HNTB in this case, would fit under the owner's rep contract, any sort of job or project that we need for a term period of time would basically fit under an owner's rep, the owner's rep position on that chart. And they would report to the executive director and the executive director to us. That's how the hybrid model works.
So you said under the hybrid model that there's the core staff and you have I think you said full-time finance person. Is that, can it be a part-time?
Yeah.
You can have part-time.
Depends on the scope.
Hybrid doesn't preclude having part-time people in certain roles like attorney. Okay.
Yeah.
If you assume what your document said, that we would have the executive director in place before we start construction, then I think there's a kind of a decision matrix that you could kind of lay out. What services do you want this executive director to be responsible for? And do you do those services in-house or out of house? The classic one that comes to mind very quickly is going to be finance.
Yeah.
Are we going to continue to have Debbie and her organization pay bills for us in construction, which the involvement by them will increase exponentially as we get into construction?
Yeah, and we had these discussions as well, quite a bit. Evaluating the core staff and the scope of whatever core staff was built out beyond the executive director was not in the scope of what we were tasked with doing. We were only tasked with how the executive director would fit and evaluating that position in the scope of this analysis for now.
Okay, so, but let's carry that just a little bit further. So
Sure.
we get an executive director in place, and if we just inserted them in today, as your drawing shows, Mike reports to the executive director. The core staff could be Debbie, and some of her financial people report up through Debbie to the executive director.
Sure.
The key thing for me is that when is the time we're going to stand up our own finance and accounting system?
Jumping ahead on the slides, sir.
Okay.
More slides and you'll see that answer.
I actually read it.
Yes, 2 slides ahead. It just says thank you.
Okay.
Oh, not from this one.
Okay.
So I tried to keep this, I and staff try to keep this presentation concise. We have had many discussions about a lot of these ramifications, but the scope we were asked with was limited to the executive director and how that fit. So without asking too many questions beyond the scope that we were tasked with doing, that's what we're staying with right now.
Defensive here.
Trying to be as
Okay, so
answer the question as fully as I can within the scope that I was assigned to answer it.
okay, so going back to the in-scope question then.
Yeah.
I know there was some concern early on with federal highways that the executive director was going to have to be an engineer. Have you guys clarified that?
We're still waiting on a response from FHWA on that clarification. They have not provided clarification on that yet.
Because I think you could build a case that as long as you have on staff, which in my mind is HMTV, you've got access to engineering.
That's what we want them to tell us, because the way it's worded is a little bit gray.
Sometimes it's easier to.
Yes, we could interpret it that way. I want concurrence from them that they are in agreement with that, so that we don't get down the road and somebody go, wait a minute, you didn't do this. So we've asked them that question of like, what does this mean? And clarify for us in writing what you expect of this agency.
When did you ask them to
It's
give you a response?
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so
There have been a number of questions. There have been a number of questions that have come up, and we've tried to get as many answers as we could. And you guys, the authority has seen some task orders related to this, as well as some other stuff. It falls into other tasks that we've worked on. But that leads directly into this being a single task, single project, and related costs. It's falling into a single project cost.
Right, with the DOT, it would be a different picture entirely.
Right.
Yeah. With DOT as an agency, right? On most DOTs, their top person has, or somewhere in that line of command,
Right.
there's a professional engineer. Right. Who kind of is the legal
Right. No, I got it.
protection of, you don't have that line of command.
They build more than one bridge.
And yes. And, even with the local agencies, they have agreement, which kind of then feeds back up through that as well.
Well, take a look at what the port's doing. The port does not have a registered engineer on staff. They hire it.
Yeah, but they're not doing federalized projects. It's not just having a professional engineer design it. It's about having your personal responsible charge. And the state agencies have that personal responsible charge through the division of their duties and stuff within it. And then local agencies fall up under that when they're a director, when the DOT is a direct oversight and their money is flowing to them. Okay. Because we're a direct recipient, we're kind of gray to that. So that's what we've asked for clarification.
Hood River Bridge, does that mean they gotta have a?
We've never had only if they're spending federal money. If they fall under ours also is because we fall under a large project as well that requires it. So it depends on the size of the project they're doing and where their funding is coming from. Not just
500 million upgrade, right?
Yeah, it's part of the requirements, but it just depends on where their funding to pay for those projects is for. As well, it's not just because they're federalized that they have to have it.
Well, it sounds like there's a number of decisions that are going to have to be made here in the next no more than about 3 months, or we're going to be chasing the ball.
We have some of that later on.
This is all dependent on the BIP.
What's that? Well, go to the next one.
I can look ahead too.
We need to go back for any clarification.
Yeah, it's like, so if we go faster, we wouldn't have.
We have to listen to the presenter instead of asking questions.
And like the previous one of the questions was about whether or not the executive director could be funded by the grants and the sources that you have now. That was determined. We went through a whole process to figure out that yes, because this is a single project, it would be reimbursable. Now, fast forward to the timing. We think the timing of this that makes the most sense is that once you have your BIP full funding or full funding in general for the project to go to construction would be your timing to pull the trigger to start moving quickly towards an executive director. We think there's also a decision that you need to evaluate, which is when you do that, you're going to have a period of 5 to 6 years where the project is going to be in a construction stage. And at the end of that period of time, then your agency is going to shift into an operation maintenance agency. And whether or not that to the group seemed like something worth discussion about whether or not that was two different people. It's believed that the skill set for the person to get you from now through construction is a different skill set from the person that would get you from opening to future operations and maintenance. So that is something that you all need to have some further discussions on and further investigation on is how do you want to set that up? But we think the initial trigger is as soon as you find out your full funding, you need to pull the trigger. So in preparation for that, keep going. In preparation for that, we think that you need to answer the questions here at the top, which is what's your full funding timeline, which is when you anticipate getting your full funding, the requirement for person of responsible charge and getting that definition from HRWSBA. Also assign the governance and authority committee to further evaluate this governance model of determining, okay, you've got an executive director. Is there key positions under that you think you also need to fill and the timing of those related to the executive director? And then the job description of the executive director versus project director. And what we mean by those two terms is project director would be this construction oversight person that gets you through construction and demo versus the executive director, which would be your operations maintenance facility type manager. And could be the same person, but we think probably the skill set's gonna be hard to find one person that could do both. But you may want to consider that.
It seems, just my immediate instinct would be that the project director person would be a more expensive person than the operations maintenance person.
That would be something I think you'd want to investigate. It could be, I could see where that, depending on what you give the responsibilities for each one of those people, but I would say it's something that should be investigated a little farther on what other agencies maybe have done. To see how it plans out.
That's a lot on how much you kind of delegate to the executive director too, I think.
I mean, you could do it with.
Look at all the stuff that we did today. That's probably executive director work, is going through what's your, the policy changes and that sort of thing would have been something that they would have run with. So
yeah, from the research we did about those two, it depends, which is the worst answer like back yes, but it depends on.
Will it get less ambiguous as we get closer, or is it simply
yes.
Okay?
Maybe it would help listing out a few questions that we need. Scope of services needs during construction. And I think that list changes the last year of construction just before you start operations.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of activities that need to take place there. And if we step back to the questions for construction, the one that makes me right now the most nervous is the ability to pay the bills. Even though it's going to be a few invoices, they're going to be big invoices. And does Debbie have enough staff to be able to do that? Or once we know funding is really going to happen and we're really going to go into the field in October, how much time does Debbie need to staff up if we're going to go that way? Or if we're not going to go that way, we got to get a system in place. We got to get people in place. We got to get it trained.
You got a Debbie up there. Looks like she wants to comment.
Yeah, Debbie.
Well, I don't know if I want to comment as much as I felt like I should comment. We are strapped, right, stretched at the port as far as capacity goes. But I do want to say that we have relied extensively on HNTB to do invoice checking on everything except their own invoices. Of course, we go through and do that. But we do rely on HNTB a great deal for checking those invoices before they come to us for payment. And then we do just kind of a reasonableness check and make sure that there's no alcohol on them and all those other things that will come back to bite us in the end if we don't look for it. So as far as our capacity for paying the bills, that's not a huge amount of work. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things that we do in the background because, like, I'm trying to get the audit done, and I'm also working on the port audit, and and then all my day-to-day stuff as well. So there definitely is a capacity limitation on the port side that we'll probably have to talk about at some point. But as far as getting the bills paid, we can get that done. That part is actually not our most time-consuming part of what we do for the Bridge Authority. But I do think, I like that you're having this discussion because I do think if you go down the path of having an executive director, you may also want to look at a few other key positions that you would like to fill at that time. So I did want to jump in there just to kind of give you some context around what the port staff capacity is.
Well, I figured that you were getting to the saturation point and you're probably going to get there before we really start hitting construction. So we're going to have to face it here.
Yeah. So the recommendations would be that once we know we have full funding, we immediately pull the trigger on an executive director, or would recommend that you immediately pull the trigger on an executive director, and then to begin having the conversations, or prior to that, over the next 3 to 6 months, decide if you want a bigger organization than that.
But in the meantime,
start working on those questions between now and then, right?
How long do you think it takes to hire an executive director from when you?
I think you're probably 6 to 9 months.
Did you say that? Oh, it does. It's right there.
What's it on mine? So On the executive director versus project director, now you're a project director currently.
Yep.
I keep envisioning something where you continue as the project director all the way through construction.
Yep.
And the executive director really comes on as really more focused on that continuation of everything and how all those.
And I think that makes a lot of,
I
think that makes a lot of sense to go that route. Because you're gonna need somebody that understands what was built and how it was done. They don't need to be in the weeds of doing it.
Right.
But they need to know it for the future maintenance. And then that person needs to lead the discussions about, are you gonna do your own snow plowing? Do you have all the maintenance agreements and right of way that you need, right, in order to maintain the facilities? Do you have all your toll stuff done in the background that needs to be done? Like, are you going, there's just a lot of things that person needs to be working on that gets ready for opening.
Mm-hmm. And then as those start to emerge, then that executive director has the ability to start to know we need help reviewing bills or paying bills, or no, I need a general engineer to help me understand how to get my arms around maintaining that.
If you're going to maintain the system, well, now I need a facilities manager. Now I need to look at equipment purchases, or writing contracts with WashDOT or ODOT to do the maintenance, right? Like starting to work on those kinds of things. So, but yeah, we kind of feel like it's a little premature until you're going to construction to do it, just not knowing how the authority, what the authority wants to do if this gets put on a long-term delay.
But it's good that we're talking about it now, because
it's going to be a short fuse the day that you get it, because you're going to immediately go, okay, where's our executive director?
Right. But up until that day, you're hiring an executive director would be fiscally impossible.
Well, it'd be hard to hire somebody with an unknown, right? Like, well, I'm going to hire you to do all this, but you might not
happen,
right? That'd be very hard to hire somebody like that.
Yeah, and springboarding off of Eric's comment, it occurs to me that the person that has to manage the operations, they need to be on board year 2 of construction, because you need to have the new bridge open and you're still doing construction for 3 more years to take the old bridge down.
Right.
So it's really there's a huge overlapping period where you're building on 2 separate focal points.
Yeah.
I think, the challenge would be is how do you grab onto that to the most efficient point? You delay something as long as you can, so you're not buying it when you don't absolutely need it, and then it's the same on the way out. Is how do you get Mike out of here?
Nope.
On to the next big thing.
He'll be ready.
You're working yourself out of a job. So,
but the other thing that we got to one more time, and we'll get out of here. When we do the 60% estimate,
yes,
we ought to be thinking about operational costs and the ramp up.
With that as well, they have to take into account what your long-term operations costs are for your TIFIA line projections and revenue.
Yeah. And at least in my experience, we get the construction contractor to give us the maintenance requirements. And then either we pay them to write the procedures or we get somebody else to write the procedure.
Yeah. And I think that goes on to like what, if you're going to contract it all to WashDOT, they already have all the procedures and processes to do it, right? Or ODOT, they do all the bridges up and down the Columbia already. It's just a matter of signing them up to do it. So
okay.
A lot of discussion there.
Yeah, this goes back a couple of items in the agenda. This is actually a question for Dan. So pay attention, Dan. The BIP, Bridge Investment Program, for the longest time, there were 2 active cycles at the same time. Has that ever been resolved?
No, there still is.
It's still the case.
Still are 2 active.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't know on timing, what the award timing will be. They could be announced at the same time. They could be staggered by months.
Remind me, is it 2014 and 15, or is it 15 and 16, or
24 and
2024? I'm sorry.
Oh,
it's a long cycle.
I lost a decade. Worked on the bridge since 2007, so.
It's 25, 26.
Okay, if we could, let's draw a close here and move on to Engineering Construction Committee.
Wow, what did we talk about? So, so engineering and construction this week, I think Mike alluded to a little bit earlier about the schedules and the shorter schedules and how those are starting to get filled in with some detail with the broader schedule. And I think the big takeaway from that is some of these short duration schedules are actually starting to drive some of the work over the next 12 to 18 months. Permitting is one of those. And I think there are some other just sequence. How do you actually accomplish some drilling at a site that you can't get to, for instance? And some of those are starting to affect that design schedule. So that was a little bit of an eye opener. It's good. I think the other thing is we spent some time looking at hours spent, tasks undertaken, and going on through the design portion. I think the takeaway on that is that we're a little bit ahead of schedule where we thought we would be. The team is spending a little less time and money than they originally thought, but there is evidence of kind of planning for the long run. And from my experience, that's real encouraging that we see the evidence of the planning on how we're going to get to the end now rather than in 18 months when there's no runway left. So I think those were my big takeaways. I'm sure there was some other detailed stuff.
Yeah,
but
so this was really the first time we saw what we call S curves, and you guys are going to start seeing these. But it basically shows we plan, our schedule says this. What we actually accomplished is pretty much right on that line. And what it took to get there was quite a bit under. So we're under running, but we're performing better than the budget, but we're on schedule. Now, a caveat, this is for the first 2 months, and we're still shaking things out. So give it 2 more months and you're going to start to see what's really going on there. But we're getting the system in place. We're getting people to start talking to it. So far, the news is good, but it's early days yet. One of the things I think we're going to be watching is interface points between EWIT, HNTB, the agency. There's a number of decision review points that are going to be coming up, and we got to hit every one of them. We can't sit back and wait and hope it'll answer itself. We've got to be right on top of it. And we've got the schedules now where we can see that. We're having those discussions. Like we always ask, what decisions are we holding you up on? What decisions do you need right now? And so far, we're in the clear. But there's going to become, some of them are coming up at us. Yeah. Catherine, did you have anything else you'd add?
The only thing I'd add is that we normally follow the escalation curves. And because of the federal shutdown, there was not any data for us to review. So that was just something we want to make sure we catch up on next meeting. And I think we didn't really do the justice for what Jason and Christy put together for that environmental permitting timeline and real deep discussion. So I did appreciate the time Christy and Jason did to kind of bring the environment or the engineering committee up to speed on where we are with permits and also kind of bring our attention to some critical items that needed to be moved forward. So thank you.
Before we go to communications and so on, there was one that we missed on your area. And that was maybe a report out on that venture capital meeting we had.
He briefly said it.
Maybe I checked out during that.
Yeah.
Too busy asking questions.
We didn't know that.
Yeah. Which basically was unsuccessful. There's no money there.
To broaden that a little bit, we had an outside company approach the authority with some potential scenarios to do alternate funding. We met with them. We said we would look at all and every option to get funding for the project. In meeting with them, they had some misinformation that I think some of their internal team gave them on what our revenues were. When they found out what the actual real revenues were, they quickly realized that what they were proposing made no sense, which is what we thought going into the meeting, but we found out why was because they were given some assumptions that were incorrect. And then when they found out the reality, they were kind of like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. And we agreed that it didn't make sense.
And thanks for the meeting. Have a nice day.
So we're continuing along the path that we've been on our financing. So no golden goose there.
Okay, communications. We talked a little bit earlier, but anything else you want to mention?
We've talked a lot about the record of decision. That the RAID grant community mobility open house was also a pretty heavy lift for some members of the Collins team. Nice that is mostly behind us. And so getting on toward the end of the year, we're focused on getting our Q4 report out the door, doing a broader year in review that we'll be working on through into January, and continuing to communicate the design work that's been coming out. Some new renderings have been trickling out from Neil. Those were quite popular at the community mobility open house. Those will continue to be refined, and we'll be putting those on the website through the project social media feed.
So I have concerns that it's difficult to communicate to people when people see something on a piece of paper, they presume that it means more than it actually does. What efforts are you taking to clarify the expectations that might be generated from the drawings? You call them renderings. I don't know if they're designed, if they're based on actual engineering data or not. So I don't know what they are.
Yeah, we're trying to be, specific about what we roll out and where. So we haven't done a broad rollout or announcement like through social media or through the project website saying this is what your new bridge is going to look like. But we have been trickling it out on things like a one pager or the boards that were up at the open house, and just noting on there that they're renderings, that they're in progress. And as we talk to folks, make sure everybody understands that.
What we are doing though with these new updated renderings is they are based on the plans to where the plans are.
So in terms of where individual piers
pier
are,
locations, pier size, pier heights, cap locations.
right? But the actual design, there's no design of a pier yet, right? We have no idea what the ornament.
We know that they're cylindrical, right? And we know the general heights of them. We know that the cap's going to be above the water line, right at the water line. We know there's 2 shafts and not 4, so it represents 4 shafts. We know that we're doing steel girders. They're crafted to match the design to the state it is. So as the design progresses, those drawings will get progressed. So the profile is the actual horizontal and vertical profile. So the curves that you see, the horizontal alignment you see, are the actual horizontal and vertical alignments for the project. The barriers are to what the barriers are today. They may get modified a little bit, but they are a base design that's for consideration. So we're at the lane widths and the shoulder widths and the bike lane widths and the pedestrian widths are all what's in the plans today. The roundabout is in there according to the design of the roundabout today. So they are intended to be more accurate now than like the previous renderings, which were really just kind of.
That's an artist conception as far as
that. Yeah. The ones that we're doing now are more intended to reflect the design and where we are in the design. So you'll see some incomplete things where like maybe something's not completely tied in. That's because we haven't figured that out yet in the design. So we're actually leaving some of that because it's just not worked out.
But things which will have significant impact on what this looks like from a distance, things such as ornament on the piers, railing design, lighting design. Those are things that are completely unknown as of today, right?
Yes, we are putting in a base kind of assumption based on kind of discussions that happened during the aesthetics committee that will then get further analyzed. So it might change, like right now we have the barrier design is the barrier design that was used on I-84. That was the archy brown metal that's on I-84 on the short concrete block. That's what we're showing. That's kind of the base thing to give people something to look at to see, and we know it's something that was previously approved in the scenic area. So we don't, it's probably not too far away from where we'll end up. But it
But
gives
it's
everybody
also a
something
little
to-
bit in contrast with what the aesthetic said. So
Yeah,
there is room that these things need to be resolved.
I think there's some dissonance there, and I hate to see this come out. And first of all, the aesthetics working group or committee or whatever it's called will say, "Wait a minute, you ignored everything we said," and people will conclude that everything is incredibly vanilla because you chose the vanilla form of it, and there's a reasonable chance that it will have some more character than I've seen. Two of these renderings so far, and there's not a ton of character.
It's better than a reasonable chance.
And what we're trying to
agree, right?
I hope that it's better than a reasonable chance that it'll have more character.
Yes.
What we're trying to do, and what I've been saying, is it reflects the percent complete that we are. So the things we don't know, we've just kind of put a base decision in there. And then that'll get refined as the decisions are made, right? So like barrier, right now it's just a plain Jane F-shaped barrier. As we move the project along and the decisions are made to change that, then we'll change it in the renderings to reflect the decisions that are made. But it gives people something to look at and go, I don't want that. Then we can mark that and say, okay, what do we want? And we can progress that, right? But I think giving people something to look at and reflect on, visually, it's really hard for people to just look at a 2D set of plans. One of them is the overlooks right now, right? The overlooks right now are a little small half circle.
Yeah.
When I first saw, I'm like, that's terrible. And they're like, well, that's what's in the plans right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, if that's what's in the plans, we need to note that we don't like that. And it needs to change, right?
So I think one of the things when we went through them last week, the alignment, the height, the vertical and horizontal is pretty well laid in the way that it needs to be. The articulation and fenestration of the bridge elements is not there yet. The connection where it lands in Oregon and Washington and how wastewater and stormwater deals, all that deals, I mean, there's something there, but it's not figured out. It's not designed. And even Joe said, yeah, we're looking at some other options. We want to try this, that, and the other thing. So think of it as the big things are starting to get nailed down. As those get nailed down, then we can get more and more finite detail. And that's encouraging to me, because this is kind of the first time that's really been demonstrated as that way.
So Dan, a suggestion for you. Why don't you work and come up with a standard short paragraph that we put on every one of these things that lets the reader know, what does this picture really mean? It's not that the bridge is done. It's still in evolution, but it's pretty well set in this area, this area, this area, this area. The rest of it, we're wide open.
I have a different idea. People don't read when they're looking at a picture. My interest is, you're an architect. Is there an artistic way of expressing lack of certainty?
Big fat pen.
Right, fuzzy, exactly, the fuzziness, to make it clear that this is conceptual. What we have now looks photorealistic. It looks AI actually, but it's in the family of photorealistic.
Yeah. And that was part of our trying to represent 15% was to use that watercolor look.
I didn't take it. I took it as too photorealistic. The intent was to be watercolor, but that's what I would love to see, watercolor look, and that isn't what I've seen so far.
Dan also had one where he put just a shade pen on some of the surfaces that makes it.
That's what I'm looking.
It screams artist interpretation. Call Dan an artist and say, okay, so now you got to make it look that way.
And then you include Mike's paragraph there, which no one will ever see except the two of us. But I'd love to see something which makes it clearer, and in the paragraph, you can say what is known and what is not known. And, certainly say, yep, this shows where the piers are going to be, how high it's going to be compared to the old bridge, all that stuff. Great stuff to communicate. But if people think that this represents the aesthetic and the design of the bridge, I think we've misled them.
I just hope that whatever we end up doing informs the public that we are making progress on this project. We're not just sitting around. And the project is evolving, design is progressing, and we're creating a real bridge, and it's going to look something like this that is not fine-tuned yet, but you can see where we're going.
And in that drawing, in the watercolor that I saw that was shown at the open house for the non-moto, was that the 855?
Yes.
It didn't look like that to me. If you're saying that is 855.
855 with a 2-foot buffer to the rail. This is a straight line.
So 8 foot for the pedestrian sidewalk, whatever you call that, and then 2 5-foot bike lanes, and then a 2-foot divider. Because it didn't look like that to me. But
you think it looks smaller or not wider?
Wide.
No.
You think it looks narrower?
Well, so interesting thing to think about. I thought that the bike lanes look narrow, but the lines were really fat. So it's hard to say. The fat lines may make them look thinner. But the other thing is
that's your fat pen.
That's the fat pen. The other thing, when you look at it, so 8 plus 5 plus 5 is 18 plus 2 is 20, which is greater than the entire width of the current bridge.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that when you look at the drawing, right?
Well, I could put 2 trucks on it.
The bicyclists are.
You think their heads are too big, maybe?
On that drawing, I think the bicyclists are too big.
There's something funny about the scale of it. So if someone could double check the scale.
Okay, I think we've killed that one enough, guys. Let's move on.
But this is really important. But we still get so much crap from those, whatever those are. It says rendering right on there. That's not a rendering. We get so much crap from that I don't want that to happen again.
We're being more precise with our language.
Thank you.
It's a precise rendering.
It's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again.
Okay, let's go.
I've done it enough. It's going to happen again.
Okay. New business. Action items, contract administration policy 06.
Yeah, sure. This is a project policy number 6 called project administration policy post award, meaning that after the contract is executed, what we need to do. We've been doing our internal control assessment and to comply with the CFR 23 CFR 172.5, which is the Federal Highway Administration mandated policy and procedures the agency has to have. And there are 18 items there. And this contract administration policy includes, for example, the contract modification or contract closeout. So this will improve our compliance to the federal funding product.
I read through this whole thing, and the thing that came up to my mind is that this is supposed to also cover, once we proceed with the progressive design build contract, and the intent is it's going to be lump sum construction contract, correct?
Well, it doesn't really specify what kind of a contract mechanism we're going to use, but it does address in the invoice process policy the way we manage the.
I know that's the way we're doing it today.
Right.
My concern here, does it really express how you would do it on a lump sum contract?
It's a
The answer is no.
No, this is a higher level than the.
Okay, so where are you going to explain how we're going to do the lump sum?
It's going to be in the contract.
Overview, it basically says everything below this, we're going to use this type of a procedure. Well, this procedure, I don't think works for a lump sum contract.
I don't think that this is. So as for the lump sum contract, it's not contracting mechanism. It's more like a contract amount and how we're gonna control the. Yeah,
I agree with you. I totally agree with you, but I don't think, as you've got this written, works for a lump sum contract. You need to add a couple of paragraphs, what ifs, here's how, in that type of contract. This is really built for a cost plus or time and material type approach to
okay.
execution. It does not cover how you would do a lump sum where they're not going to give you invoices down to the individual name.
Right, that's in the other policy.
But you require it here.
Added to reference, but let me double explain this. CFR 23 CFR 172.5 is for the agency's procurement management automation of engineering and design contracts. It's specifically for that. So
Be a future one for the construction contract.
if we need to, we can
Where does it?
amend this.
I'm sorry, I missed it then. Where does it say engineering?
It's for CFR 23 CFR 170.
It's buried in there.
Yeah. Because we were trying to comply with all those policies they mandate to have.
Okay,
So
are we
this
gonna
is-
have another one put in place for construction?
We can do that as this is gonna be another annual cycle. And this is the first version and we can make a more progress as we go.
So are you gonna incorporate it into this one or are you gonna have a different?
It will be incorporated in this one.
You just said this one is required by 10 CFR umpty squad. And it only deals with.
As of now.
Deals with what we're doing now.
Right.
And when we get to that next contract, then you would have a.
Right, because we haven't gone to the construction yet.
And a lump sum would be pretty simple because it's
right.
Kind of it. It's whatever you agreed to pay for, right?
So as of now, this is more toward the engineering and.
So this is, of course, for us and to manage our work.
Right.
But we're also going to show this to Federal Highways.
Exactly.
So see, we're in financial manager control. And the first thing I would ask if I was Federal Highways is what are you doing on construction?
Right. So we'll amend this to as we go forward.
So why don't we go proactive and do it all the first time?
And
so we don't have to touch it again.
Well, we will have to have an annual revision anyways. So we want to have this ready because at any time FHWA asks for what kind of a policy do you have for contract management, contract administration, we can show this to them. Here it is. And this is covers as this phase and next phase.
I made my point.
Yeah, but I think it's important to have something in place now instead of delaying for another few months.
I don't want to delay it. I want to add the rest of it in here so we're done one time. It shows that we're thinking ahead.
Right.
Federal Highways, and we're not just, hey, we got this in front of our face. We're going to deal with this, and we'll forget about the stuff that's coming next week. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, I think the intent was you don't have anything right now.
Well, I totally.
So we can wait a few more months with nothing, or we can put this one into place, and then 6 months from now, we can give you the one that has construction.
Yeah.
I'm a little not upset, but concerned that why didn't we do it when we drafted this?
I think you didn't have time to get all of that in here.
I don't think you're talking about much. Okay. Made my point.
Yeah, I would suggest that we make this adopted now and then amending this to incorporate the other areas. I think it is important to have something in place.
I think I mean, to Mike's point, it would be nice if over the next 6 months we have that figured out, because I just keep having this feeling that we're going to get an approval and all of a sudden we're going to want to be pre-ordering materials and that sort of thing. And
how long would it take you to update this to put?
Well, issue it out and then turn right around and update it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait a year to update it.
Yeah, I like our policy number 1 for progress payment and improve approval procedure had a couple of revisions within few months. So we had one in place and then we kept modifying it to make it improve, and it's like a third version already. So we can do the same thing for this one.
How many more of these do we have to do policies and stuff to check off all the policy boxes?
We have a couple more to go.
What's left?
It's grant administration policy.
Okay.
That will be done in a month or so. And then I think with that, we're pretty much done.
That's the last one.
Yeah. So we have a progress payment approval policy, and then record retention policy. We have a conflict of interest policy, which will be coming back next month, and then cybersecurity policy, and then contract administration policy, and then grant of the administration policy.
And then underneath that, we've got a whole host of things like PMP.
PMP is another step.
Yeah, you have your project man, your federal FHWA project management plan. You have a federal FHWA finance plan that has to be done.
We have that list in one place.
Yes, so
He's got one.
Yeah, we have a map that shows when to have a annual cycle.
Could you please send that to Funding and Finance and the Engineering Construction Committee?
Sure.
Just remind us what we got.
Sure.
Yeah. And if governance wants it, we'll send it to governance as well. So you know all the list of stuff that we got to do.
We generally review these.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Informational items.
Okay, so are we good to go adopted or?
We need to do.
I would suggest we go now with what we got, that you turn right around and get it revved up.
So we need a motion, right? A motion to approve the policy as recommended.
Policy 06.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, let's move on to informational items. Mike?
The first four we've talked about, the permit, access to Washington, bridge monitoring. Dean, do you have any key project message updates? We talked about those as well. Okay. Commissioner terms, we talked about this at the last meeting. There are terms both on the Oregon and Washington side. I think both counties are working through the process. I think Hood River County is doing some updates right now.
Yeah, so Hood River County, there were two separate issues. There was the fact that when we extended Mike's term, when he changed his move plans, we put a December 1st date instead of January 1st, which is where all the other expirations are. So we did an email poll to change that. I don't know if that was completed or
Yeah, it was, and we got a letter.
Okay, good. So that was completed, and that will be confirmed through our consent agenda at our December meeting. The second question is whether we will make appointments at our December meeting to fill the positions which are technically open January 1st. And I believe that that's the case, but I have not yet seen the agenda come out for that meeting. So I'm not, it was going back and forth. There was some discussion about maybe not doing that until the January meeting. So I hope that it winds up in the December meeting.
I got an email from your administrator that kind of clarified the opening for applications has been changed to the last week of December. They're going to bring all of those applications to your board meeting and you're going to vote on it late January is what they told me.
Okay, so they didn't take my advice then. So that creates a problem for us because we have things we're talking about. So first of all, we have people who are not officially members as of January 1st. So we have voting questions, we have approval of agendas, approval of items, but we also have the choosing of chairs and vice chairs, et cetera. So
it almost sounds like to me they need to do what they did for me for the month of December.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I was pretty explicit about the need to get this resolved in our December meeting. I don't know what happened. So let me see if I can.
I mean, one option is for them to send a group letter that says the four of us.
We can do a temporary extension, but temporary extension still doesn't help us in terms of appointing.
No, that means that you gotta wait until February to do it.
Right.
Okay. Jake,
Sorry,
available.
I thought I got this. I thought I had this fixed.
Were you able to talk to Clickatack County?
I'm going in front of the county this next week.
Okay. Do we?
And they meet weekly rather than monthly, so.
Clickatack County does?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we think they'll have theirs resolved by the end of the year?
Do they have any that expires
January?
So we still have one opening, and I don't think that will be resolved by the end of the year.
Okay. And then you have two that are term limited January 1st.
Doug and Ben.
Term limited is not the right term to use.
Yeah, terms expired.
Term expired, sorry. I figure out the right word for that. Term expiration date.
We have people who expire on December 31st.
Yeah.
Okay, so
are they gonna be able, do you know if they'll take action on that before the end of the year, or do they need to do an extension as well, or?
I don't know if they will or they won't be able to take action by the end of the year. One other option we could have is if we have an issue at the beginning of the month next, we could skip our first meeting of the month if they don't have anything that's major on the agenda, and everything should be fixed by our second meeting in January.
Because I think the way our bylaws is by the first meeting of the next year.
Yeah, and that's what he said. If you
cancel the meeting, the first meeting's when you meet.
Right, that's what I was just thinking out loud.
Then we can do that in our next meeting in December, right?
You don't have another meeting in
We don't have another one,
right? Or do we have one? We do not.
We have to do that today.
So this is it for December?
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought we had one.
ENC does. We don't have another one on the 17th.
We can call an emergency meeting to simply make an agenda.
We can do that.
It requires 48 hours. 48. So 48-hour notice, we can do a special meeting, get people on Zoom for 5 minutes and cancel a meeting.
So the first meeting is planned for January 12th. We will do that before the 12th of January.
Yeah, the meeting on
You have to do it before December 31st, or half of us can't vote.
Right.
This is why I'm really angry this wasn't resolved. I've tried 5 times to get this resolved.
Okay, so I'm between now and.
Ready? Clarify all of this, make sure that we're.
Yeah, I mean, he has different news than I have. So first thing I'm gonna do is check to see if Mike's news is accurate.
I'll send you the email.
I mean, I had a call from our administrator while I was sitting here, but I obviously didn't answer because I'm in this meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on.
All right, so I guess you still get back to us and let us know if we need to schedule.
I won't leave the building before I get something resolved.
Okay.
Get a meeting scheduled if we need to before the end of the year.
Okay, so
So as a commissioner or as an alternate, can I just get a recap of what was just discussed? Because I'm confused about what's going on and and so I imagine the public would also be confused. So could we get a succinct kind of what just was decided?
We just made you chair. No, maybe not.
Okay, so
Anything was decided, right?
let me see if I can summarize what we just talked about. In Hood River County, there's 4 commissioners that their terms expire the end of this calendar year. Those commissioners, my understanding through an email with the county commission, they are going to open up the last week of the month of December to receive applications for these 4 positions. They're not going to make a decision on this until the month of January. And if I remember right, it was towards the back end of January when they meet.
Third Monday of January.
Okay. And that's where it stands today. On the Washington side, there's 2 commissioners that have terms that expire the end of this year as well. And according to Jake's understanding, we don't really know what the plan is for Klickitat County on how to fill these particular positions, nor the vacant one that's available as well. So that's where we stand right now. We're talking about potentially not having a commission meeting the whatever it was, the 12th of January, pushing it out to the next one, which is 2 weeks later, giving the times for both counties to figure out how they're going to fill these spots.
Is there
that's what we've got.
Is there an addendum or something we can add to the bylaws that if a county has not approved for seats to be filled, that the current members just extend in their seats until the new approval? Or because what it seems like is that because of timing issues that are outside of our control, there will be empty seats on a bridge authority. And it just looks for governance. It looks as though, isn't there a way we could just write it? We could write addendum as until the county approves or whatever, that the same people remain.
It's not a bylaws question. That would be a CFA question. So the CFA would have to be approved by the counties.
By the counties, yep.
And other parties also. And with my county hat on, I would resist that change because this institution is supposed to be a creation of the counties. And I see Jake.
But the counties are not able to meet the timeline that is necessary to ensure that people are still in the seats. So I was just saying if there's a way. That's all I was just saying. I'm not trying to break it.
No, I understand what you're saying.
At the very least, the counties would need to do an extension, just like how they did with Mike Fox, and they should be able to do that at any given meeting. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay, so from the Klickitat County side, Arthur's our point there, since you're on that. I'm sorry, Hood River County.
Yep.
And then Jake, you're the counterpart for.
Yep, I'm meeting with the BOCC on the 16th. So if we have to do an extension, I can have that likely on their agenda for the 23rd or the 30th.
Okay.
We will schedule, I guess, based on what we hear back from Arthur and Jake, we'll schedule a meeting as needed.
Possible emergency meeting to schedule, to change our schedule for next year.
Yes, which would be, your meetings, just for information, is on the 12th and the 26th.
Yep.
Which would put you after the first Hood River County meeting, which would be on the 19th.
19th is a federal holiday also, so.
You probably won't have your.
Right. So probably the 20th.
20th. Okay.
It says 19th in my calendar, but it's probably the 20th.
20th, okay, which would still be before your first meeting, which would be the 26th, if you only go to one meeting in January. Okay, there you go, time. Okay.
But that said, we should all be thinking about who we want to be chairs for next year.
Next 2 years.
Next 2 years. Sorry. So remind me. So it's a 2-year appointment, and it's
one from Oregon, one from Washington,
and it's one calendar year, then one calendar year.
Yeah. So I would think it's Washington's turn next year, and then Oregon the following year.
Can we get a reminder of what the process is for selecting chairs? Are there nominations, or how does the process work?
What we did last time, we just sat in the meeting and either nominated somebody or somebody said they would like to be, and we just voted. It was pretty informal.
But there was this large sword that was pulled out of its own.
That's right.
Ben, it's in the packet there, the bylaws.
Yeah. But the process pretty weak on that particular area.
And Mike, I don't think it has to go to Washington next year because it's a 2-year appointment. It just has to swap from year to year. So it could go.
Yeah.
It could be Oregon and then Washington.
Yeah.
It says the co-chairs determine the schedule.
Yes. That clarify if you've been.
I like having rules.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the most. The
Yep.
basic thing is,
But there's something there.
yeah, any rules that we have in place, we can change by a majority anyway.
Yeah.
We can't change the CFA, but we can change our own rules.
Okay, let's go around the room. Anybody have anything to say?
I have one thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud that my advancement of the principles of the American Anti-Acronym Association have been really taking hold here. You guys are doing a great job through this calendar year of for an engineering-based meeting. The control of the acronyms is phenomenal, and I really appreciate it. So,
thank you.
We're trying to.
we can always do better, but I think our meetings are almost getting understandable. And maybe some of the folks.
How about the rest of the
Who let
folks
us
here in
know,
the
but-
room? Grant, anything?
Nope.
Eric?
Just the reach event last week, just outstanding amount of work up on the wall. That was really fun to see. So I know what goes into creating those boards. They don't just pop up there by themselves.
Is reach an acronym?
Yes.
Ben, anything from you?
It's too long to explain that.
Catherine?
Nothing.
Mark?
Nothing from me.
He looks more sunburned than he was when he started.
And Jake, anything?
Nothing major to add. I thought the event went amazingly well, and I can't say enough thanks to all of the staff at HNTB and our consultants. I thought it was very productive.
And just kind of a final thought for us, guys. Even though we have this event coming in on the 11th, and hopefully everybody can make it, when you take a look at what we've accomplished this last year, it's been absolutely amazing, and we've got an awful lot to be proud of. And I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Make sure you're safe. Make sure you spend time with your families. And if we don't see you on the 11th, we'll see you right after the first of the year. And with that, we'll draw to a close. Thank you all.
Thank you.